want to bring in Chris Hausch with Hausch Tax Law to answer this next one. Chris, this is from Larry, who wrote us, are there any savings renters can get on their taxes? One year he was told yes, the next year it was no, and he asks, why are things so wishy-washy for people who rent?
Well, unfortunately, at the federal level, there's not a deduction on that your IRS tax return, but for California, there is a refundable renter's credit that you can get. You have to be single, and I'm sorry, if you're single, it's $52,400 or less. It has to be your income. A married couple can be $104,000, and then you get a $600 refund that's refundable to you at that point.
All right, this next one from Randall. He's a gambler, and he says he gets a bunch of 1099 forms from the casino. In fact, he says he has over 100 this year alone. He wants to know if he should enter these one at a time or if he can use the win-loss statement.
So, depending on your software that you're using, the program for the tax returns, it may be that you have to go and do the individual entering in, but I do use that win-loss statement in audits to go and show, because the total amount that you won is entered on line 21 of the tax return, the losses or expenses up to what you won on your Schedule A itemized deduction. So it will be a total amount combined on the return, but sometimes the software does require you to enter each one line by line.
Interesting. Well, we're merging into property law with this next question from Mark. He wrote us about his parents' trust. He's the sole trustee. He received a delinquency notice for a reassessed property value and taxes due after he sold his parents' property. But by the time he received that notice, it was more than 3 years after the sale. What does he do next?
So in that situation, you have to look at when was that reassessment made. The law is that you have to respond in a certain amount of time, and each county has its own different rule related to that of how much time you have to respond. If you miss that deadline, then you're stuck with having to go and pay it in full and trying to protest it through the Board of Equalization at the state level. But it's very important anytime you get a letter from the government. Look at the deadline to respond and respond in that time frame. Otherwise, you can lose your chances to be able to go and fight the battle.
An important tip. Now, one last one from Lester. He filed with TurboTax. He bought a Tesla. He never saw a write-off for an electric car, but he has since learned, at least word on the street, you get a $7,000 write-off. Is that true?
There are a lot of little conditions in there, so look at the website of the IRS. You can enter your VIN number of your vehicle to determine whether or not it's eligible for that discount. It has to have been made in the United States. They also look at what your income is. If it is that you were eligible, it could have been that you just didn't answer the question on TurboTax the way that prompted that to show up. That's where you can amend that tax return as long as it's within 3 years of when you originally filed and be able to potentially get that refund. But do know that it's going to take them time to review that paperwork. Don't expect it to be a fast refund.
Got it, especially if you're a single filer versus if you're married, of course, to check those. Okay. Thank you, Chris, for that. And a reminder to submit those questions, abc7news.com/7 on your side. You see this panel of experts here answering them in real time. Show you that panel of experts you just mentioned. They're here working to answer those questions as we speak. It's not too late to submit them. And I want to introduce you now to Amanda Boston with Southward and Associates. And Amanda, we were talking earlier about the big news from the IRS, the potential cuts to half their workforce. Do you expect there to be fewer audits now?
I do expect there to be fewer audits. There's fewer people working there. There's going to be fewer to audit information coming from the IRS. Now, that doesn't mean you need to get crafty and creative with your tax returns, because they might not be looked at by a human, but they will be looked at by robots. And the IRS has been using computers to compare and analyze the data received to similar tax returns in your zip code. And so they're going to pull it no matter what.
So no funny business. Good reminder. But this next question is not funny. It does, though, apply to anyone working from home. This is from Richard. He's a self-employed contractor. He uses a home office. He recently tested his water and found it contaminated. So he bought a filtration system. It cost him thousands of dollars. And he's wondering if he can deduct any part of that on his taxes.
So the filtration system could be a part of his home office, and that would be an appreciable asset in addition to his home office, depreciated based on the square footage of the area used regularly as his his home office.
And it applies to a lot of us, of course, who are still working from home. This next question is from Edith. She won $1,000 in the lottery, and she asked, she's currently on Social Security disability, so she doesn't do her taxes, and she wants to know how she can pay taxes on that.
Well, congratulations, Edith. With $1,000, it's not taxable to California at all, and with only Social Security income, you really don't have a filing requirement. So congratulations, enjoy.
Good news for Edith. All right, Amanda, thanks so much for your time. Not too late to submit those questions. Dan and Alma, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie.
Good information.